So I understand you went and you actually lived in Israel for a while, right? Was that a part of that
Yeah.
same sort of feeling that you were looking to just go deeper into that world?
That was like, I'm not going to law school. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. I'm just putting life on hiatus and going to Israel and just going to figure it out. So that's what happened. That's how I ended up in Tel Aviv. And I was like doing this little program where I got to take some classes in Hebrew and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and also get to volunteer and tutor English to people. And while I was in Israel is when I got into Columbia. And then I was like, I guess I'm going to New York now.
Got it. And did you observe, is there a psychedelic community in Israel?
Oh, for sure. It's huge. Yeah. Yeah. And Israel now, they have their CannaTech and PsyTech it's a huge conference basically around cannabis and psychedelic science and culture. And and MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, has one of their study sites in Israel. And there's so much actually in Israel and Palestine that is so relevant to the work that I'm doing. I wrote a story, for instance, a couple of years ago for Playboy about how addressing trauma is like central to addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There's not going to be peace while people are still traumatized and acting out of trauma and continuing to perpetuate that and vote in certain ways or enact violence in certain ways. And of course, treating trauma is one of the biggest things in psychedelic research. So it all comes full circle. And so there's the modern day expression of that. And then there's also like the ancient expression of that, where there's excavations now and scholars looking into all of the psychoactive plants and combinations that people used back in biblical times that enabled prophecy and religious ritual and stuff like that. So there's a lot of meat there that is really resonant to me.
Yeah, there's so much innovation in Israel. It's become known as this hub of innovation across a variety of sectors. That surprises me. I did not know that. It also applies to CannaTech and PsyTech. Are there instances of Israelis and Palestinians actually coming together under this context so far? What does that look like?
So a couple people, Natalie Ginsburg from MAPS, a Palestinian peace activist named Antoine Saka, and Lior Rosman, who's at Imperial College London, are looking at an anecdotal study in which Israelis and Palestinians are drinking ayahuasca together for conflict resolution. I wrote about this briefly for one of the past issues of DoubleBlind. Of course, that is a self-selecting group, but even so, it shows promise there. And I think also, especially once MDMA, which is shown to be a treatment for trauma, gets approved as a medicine and people have access to it, I think that's going to be a complete game changer.